I came in about halfway point. I took over as general manager about 4 years in, and we figured out what a wonderful partnership we had. So, business sold. We stayed for about 1.5 years to make sure that all of our staff was in really good shape. I had a staff of 13 people. And there are that few people, they truly become a part of your family, and it was very important to us that they were in really good shape before we left. Once we got around to January of 2014, we opened North Catering Company. Now, leaving both of our salary positions, opening our first company, and buying our first homes, all in a 3-week span, was probably not the ideal way to go. For us, it was just exactly what we needed to do because we knew that we were walking in faith. The way that we started North Catering Company was we didn't have investors. We didn't have a whole lot of money to start our business. It was literally one of those, you need 40 dishes? All right, let's go buy 40 dishes. So we started with the pennies in our pocket. We already had a little bit of a following, a little bit of clientele that just followed us, and that continued to grow from there. With that, it really did just continue to grow and grow and grow. I'll never forget the night that we sat back and said, over a really good bottle of wine, sat back and said, what do we do? Do we take out temporary positions while we wait for the business to take off? What's our best strategy here? Finally, by the end of the night, we said, let's go to bed. Think about it, pray about it. We'll regroup in the morning. Woke up the next morning, had enough phone calls and emails come through to book us solidly for the next month. And we just went, okay, God, this is yours. It has continued like that all the way through. Within 1.5 years, we were voted Best of Lubbock. Thank you guys for that. That was really wonderful and so unexpected. And within 3 years now, we are the largest catering company in the city, with the exception of Texas Tech. So we are now able to not just do these small events, which I like. Nothing makes my heart happier than my couples that call and say, hey, it's my 10-year anniversary. Can you just drop off a course dinner for us with eating instructions? Love those. But we also do buffet for up to 1,000 people. And we do served plated dinners for up to 700. The way that I do my staffing is incredibly unique. At least for Lubbock. I don't know of any other catering company that is of the magnitude that we have that does not use temporary services. I absolutely refuse to use temp services. Reason being is because it would be a whole lot easier, but not for me necessarily, because what I would experience and what I see at so many events are just, creepy guy hanging out in the corner, not knowing what to do. That's not what I do. I have an incredible staff. I've got a core crew of about 9 people that are in my kitchen, and then I have a core crew of catering staff. Then, from then forward, I have a text list of about 50 kids. And the way that I do my staffing for all of my events is I send out a mass text. And I say, here's the event, here's the time, here's how much it pays, here's the game, here's what to expect. The first ones to kind of jump in are the ones who get the position for that night. It works out really well for them because they're able to choose their schedule with it. If they're available, they want to make a little bit of extra money, it works out well. If not, then no worries, catch you next time. So what that does is for my clientele, they're extraordinarily well taken care of because I don't have to worry about, these are all servers, these are all servers, I don't have to worry about them not paying attention. Or there's something called a server's itch, where they see an empty cup. They can't leave it there immediately. So it makes it I don't have to worry about my clientele. My clientele is very well taken care of, and it raises the level of expectation at the same time, just by simply using people that are already in the industry, that are in my community, and being able to let them jump in with me when they'd like to. With North Catering Company, we realized quickly that though we were being able to meet everyone else's needs, we come from fine dining. That's kind of where our background is, that's where our hearts are. So we decided that we'd like to get back into doing some kind of cool stuff for us. We opened a little, what's called a pop-up restaurant, or an underground restaurant, and called Rumored Supper Club. The way that Rumored Supper Club works is you get an email with time and a date and a menu, and a link to buy your ticket. We only take 25 guests. It started out with about 25 guests, and that list has grown to about 150. It's never at the same location. It's always literally a pop-up restaurant. So we've had them in art galleries, we've had them in barns, we've had them in fields, we've had them in people's backyards, we've had them in people's homes. It's always very, very outlandish in cuisine. I remember we did one last summer that was Australian themed. And so we had everything from emu sausage to kangaroo sliders and shark for the main course. You have to be an adventurous eater to go to one of these things. What it did for me was it taught me how to be able to work under any condition at any time. I did not realize that when we started this fun little project that was just us throwing dinner parties, that what it was doing was training me on how to be able to run my business in a very, very unconventional way that actually trained my chef and my staff how to be able to work under just about anything. Something called, I always call rolling with punches. And I kind of feel like that is really what has gotten us to where we are. We opened a small restaurant called The Pickle and the Pig about 9 months ago. We were approached by the YWCA, and the director of the Legacy Event Center, which is owned by the Y, came in and said, "Girls, what do you think about opening a restaurant here?" And we said, "That sounds great." Never thought we'd go back to the restaurant industry, but let's talk about it. And she said, "Well, there's a catch. There's no kitchen here." So we said, well, we kind of know how to work without anything on hand. We've trained ourselves well on how to be able to run a really successful business without having kitchens on hand. So what we did for the first 8 months of owning this restaurant was our location was located on 114th in Indiana. We would make all of the food for the restaurant, 114th in Indiana, and we would transport it to 14th Avenue in downtown inside of the Legacy Event Center. Treat it just like a catering, but be able to run it like a restaurant. That River Supper Club taught me how to open another business. Rolling with the punches. Being able to take something that shouldn't work and be able to make it the most perfectly unconventional, conventional, successful business. And it shouldn't work, but it does. My staff is incredible. They think on their feet. That's something that I value in them very, very much. There obviously are things that you just have to take a deep breath and say, I don't know how we're going to make this work, but it does, and it comes together. But it takes a little bit of out-the-box thinking. That's what I'm a little bit ashamed to say my entire business is based upon, is just simply rolling with the punches and trusting the Lord to say, all right, I don't know where you're going to place me next, but you've got me here, so use it. So that's what we did there. Something that was really, really important to me with the Pickle and the Pig. I grew up in a political family, and watching Lubbock as a whole and being so encouraged by the small business and those that are willing to lift you up and hold you in their hands and say, we've got you. That's something that's incredible. It doesn't happen everywhere. It's not happening here the way it needs to either, though. So one of the big things for me was that this be a community-based restaurant. If you walk into my restaurant, it's not like anywhere else in the city. It is fine dining service, community style. So you're gonna walk in and you're gonna see long tables. I didn't mention it before, but this literally is a pop-up restaurant. This is still in an event center. You're gonna find folding tables that have black tablecloths on them, and it looks like formal dining. Every Friday night, it tears down, we clear out, we don't exist. So this is a totally out-of-box restaurant. But what I'm seeing happen with that community seating, it is so important to me, is that I have senators sitting next to busboys, sitting next to CEOs, sitting next to interns, sitting next to little old ladies. And the conversations are happening. And that's important to me. That needs to happen. If we're going to continue to bring in this community, which I feel is extremely important, especially with so many wonderful people like you guys that say, hey, we're here. We need to support one another. I need for those conversations to start happening. And it's happening on a very, very real level. I'll never forget that I had a guy come in a couple of days ago. He was, for lack of a better way to put it, he was a little rough. You could tell he'd seen some things, but he was charming. He got seated next to a little old couple celebrating their 60th wedding anniversary. And I just went, don't know how this is going to go, but let it happen. Sometimes God just does cool stuff. By about 10 minutes in, they were best friends. They had shared each other's stories. The level of ministry that was happening between those two tables that literally, and you know, mom and dad here, and then this guy sitting here, and they got to the end of it, and he bought their lunch, and they got to the end of it, and they came and found me to say thank you for giving them the opportunity to find someone else in their world. They went and had dinner that night. He bought their lunch, and their words to me like, this is a blessing. That's incredible to me. That's not supposed to happen. It's just, it's so cool to me. The one thing that my mom always told me was the conversations, the love, everything that's very real in your life happens over food. Life events happen over food. Sometimes it's just a conversation over the kitchen counter. Sometimes it's food at a wedding. Sometimes it's food at a funeral. You just never know how that might minister to someone, and that's very, very important to me. So my whole basis is just simply let each other up. Let conversations happen. You never know who you're going to be sitting next to or what their story is or how that person can connect you to 10 other people. That's very, very important, I think, for all of us as we continue on with the entrepreneurial side of this. So that's a little bit of my story. Does anyone have any questions for me?
So the Pickle and the Pig, is that the restaurant at 14th and M?
It certainly is.
And so what are the days and hours of operation of that?
From Monday through Friday, 10:30 to 4 is when we serve lunch. And then we switch to dinner at 5 o'clock and we close at 9. The kind of fun thing that we've done with the Pickle and the Pig is that it's a gourmet sandwich shop during the daytime because what else were we going to do without kitchens? And then at dinner, now that we have, I didn't mention before, but we have transplanted our kitchen. We're located inside of the Legacy Event Center now for all of our operations. So we're able to do a little bit more. Our dinner is definitely more fine dining, but it's still the community style. It's speakeasy style because we're not allowed to have a TABC license there. So again, rolling with the punches. What am I going to do? Doing fine dining without having a liquor license. So we've made it speakeasy style. We bring in whatever type of alcohol you want. It gets confiscated at the door. I have a mixer's bar. My mixologist is happy to mix you whatever drinks you want with your alcohol. And it's just kind of a fun atmosphere all the way around. Again, you've got people that are going to come in and say, oh, we bought a bottle of vodka or the martini. You know, it's just kind of a neat concept all the way around. So, Monday through Friday, 10:30 to 4, 5 to 9. Yes, sir?
Joanne, I see that you are really passionate in what you do. That's a good strike for being a good entrepreneur. Okay, I teach that at Tech. So you said that one night you and your co-owner were sitting in a patio and then thinking what I plan next. But how do you get from there to be the second only in Lubbock to be the catering service? Everybody takes pride in delivering good food, delivering good service, creating a variety of palates. But what is that brought you from that X to this Y?
The most important part for me is that Chef and I have a very, very solid agreement. And that is, I stay out of your kitchen, you stay out of my front house, and everybody's happy. Where I stay out of her kitchen, she is so good at what she does, her side of her industry, the food side, I trust her with explicitly. Vice versa, she does the same for me. So my front of house is what it's called. Everything that's the production side, that is my side of it. So I know that I don't have to worry about the food side of it because my partner has that side completely taken care of. At the same time, she knows that I am able to connect with that client on a very, very real level. It is not just oh, you need food dropped off. That is not the style of catering that we do. We get very, very in-depth in the planning process with that client. Everything from making sure that, the food is prepared the way that they would like to what type of dishes they want, the feel for their event, all the way around. So not just simply having someone come in and say, well, I want barbecue. Okay, cool. Let's do barbecue. But let's really talk about the whole event. Tell me your vision for the event. Let's take it back a few steps and make sure that every single step of the way that your entire event is swept through and taken care of so that we don't miss anything. That's what's made us successful all the way through. It's not just All right, here you go. It is very much I hear what you're saying, but let's go from top to bottom. Let's make sure that every single step all the way around has been well thought out, so that one, it makes it to where I can do my job properly, so we don't get there and go, oh, I thought you were providing that. That's not a good way to do it. So having that full communication with the client and being able to meet them where their hearts are for that event and being able to see it brought to fruition all the way through is what I believe has gotten us to where we are.
Do you think that the pop-up nature of Pickle and Pig is something that's valuable to your customers? Because obviously for the dinner party, that makes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that if you were to convert it to a traditional restaurant, that you would lose anything? Would your customers like it less?
I don't necessarily think that our customers would like it less. However, I will tell you, even if I were to take it to a traditional standing, I would not lose my community seating, because that is what makes that experience so valuable. Not just the food, but the fellowship.
How are you doing your advertising or your marketing?
The interesting thing about my businesses, plural, is that I don't have a demographic. So advertising is very difficult for us. My clientele can be anything from the college kid to the elected official to the lawyers to the housewives. I just don't have a demographic. So what I did 2 years ago is I pulled all of my marketing dollars. Decided that if I did have a clientele, it was probably, for my big scale events, especially for North Catering Company, would be all of the galas and the fundraisers that go on through the city. Those are my high dollar events. So what I did was I pulled all of those marketing dollars, and anytime there was a fundraiser going on, particularly that had live auction, what I did was I gave them a package. So I would say, here is a 7-course dinner for 8 people, valued at this much, partnered with, let's say, one of the other venues in town, partnered with McPherson Cellars. They'll be providing wine with it. Here's what you asked for. So what that does is now I have my name on this giant screen in front of 400 of Lubbock's finest that are my clientele for those large events, and I'm in live auction with Chef Sarah North and North Catering Company, not just being heard and seen, but being broadcast and yelled across a bidding floor. All of a sudden, you're at the top of the town. That is what I did with all of my marketing. So I'm not spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on marketing. What I'm doing instead is spending money on a little bit of food and being broadcast all over the city directly to my market.
Your website.
I do have a website. We do a lot of social media.
So do you do some direct marketing apart from these going into targeted events? Of course, word of mouth is one best way for you, but it goes to say that you have to focus on certain clientele even though you don't have a distributor in others.
For the Pickle and the Pig, I would say it's a little bit different. I would say that my clientele is definitely a little bit more honed in, whereas with North Catering Company and being honed in more with social media, I would say that most of my foodie crowd is very social media friendly. They tend to try to keep up with everything, so we've really focused on that aspect of it for the Pickle and the Pig. For North Catering Company, it really is such a broad spectrum because everyone gets married. Everyone has life events. So with that, it really is just getting out and meeting people, introducing yourself, a handshake, word of mouth, letting other people talk about it. Yes, sir.
You talk about your catering business, the student servers that you use, that you contact by text. How do you handle payroll taxes with those student servers?
Oh, that's a great question. It depends, because most of them don't work for me full time. Most of them will come through and I'll have them 2 times a year because I have such an expansive list and it rotates so frequently. So they're contract labor until they hit $600 for that year. Once they get even close to that is when I'll actually put them on my payroll, and then they'll go through payroll taxes just like everything else. But for those particular kids, most of them are contract labor up to that $600 mark.
So where's the, I guess, in Lubbock, I moved here recently. From what I can tell, it's a geographically constrained market, and it's a dump in a very big space.
Yes.
Where's the growth opportunity?
I would say that most of the growth that's happening in my industry is all happening southwest right now. I started a restaurant in the middle of downtown. But that's something that I'm really kind of proud of because so many of the chains are moving southwest. And if I can be a part of a little bit of growth in the downtown area, along with people like Catering West, who's done a phenomenal job with the West Table, Italian Gardening has done a great job. I mean, there are some really, downtown is being revitalized by us kids, so to speak. We're all very young that are downtown. That's very interesting. I don't have anyone on my staff over the age of 35 right now, which is strange to me. That's not normal, but both Chef Sarah and I are over the age of 30. We're young. Cameron West, I think, is 32, where it's all of these young minds that are coming together and saying, anybody can do chain. Anybody can walk into a chain, but let's give somebody an experience. And so that's really where we're focused right now. We're not in the hub of everything, but what we're doing is kind of making this little foodie getaway in the midst of downtown. Mark Rader's doing a great job, Mark McDougall, all of those guys just kind of bringing the downtown back to life, and it's been really encouraging to see.
I know you've had out-of-town gigs. What would you create a strategy just to expand that area?
Out of town is always an interesting concept. We had a wedding for 300 people in Odessa a couple of weeks ago. It just goes back to what I was talking about before of that really intense, in-depth planning and making sure that all of your ducks are in a row. I love doing out-of-town operation. What makes out-of-town a little bit different for us is that obviously here I can make the food and transport it hot. If I'm out of town, I can't make the food here and travel 4 hours with it and expect to hold the quality that I hold ourselves to. So having a kitchen that's available is one of the big things as we branch into other markets. I could see us potentially opening other branches in the next several years. That's not something that I necessarily see for us in the next 5 years. But once we get past that, I would absolutely see us expanding, especially North Catering Company.
So I know there's a high turnover in the restaurant industry. Is the catering industry any different or is it similar?
The way that I approach my staff is very different. When I bring a true staff member on, not necessarily my list of kids that I text that all have real jobs other places, but my core staff, when I bring them on, there's a very real conversation that happens. And that is that I know that when I bring someone into work for me, that I'm not just responsible for them. Like I said, I have a very young staff. They are all there to support their young families. I don't think I have anyone on my staff right now that doesn't have small children. So I know that I am responsible for not just them being able to show up for beer money, but I'm responsible for those guys to be able to provide for their families. And that's a very real thing for me. It's a harder way to go as a business owner because then you're emotionally tied to an extent. I don't have turnover. I personally have not. Other than my kids that have just had some really incredible opportunities and been able to use their experience with me to fly. And that's exactly what I would want for them. And so that's really the only turnover that I personally have had is just simply those that have been able to use their experience with us and approaching them out of love and saying, listen, we've got you. You're okay. And if you need something, then you come to us. Sometimes you're going to be told no, and that's okay too. But yes, the restaurant industry as a whole has a very high turnover rate. The restaurant industry as a whole, it's a nasty industry. You've got a lot of drugs, you've got everybody sleeping with everybody else. I mean, it's kind of a nasty industry as a whole. I don't have that because I bring them in and say, you're part of our world, but that's because I'm here to help you to be able to succeed here too. And there's a level of respect that goes with that on both sides. That's awesome. Well, I am thrilled to be in a position to be able to come and visit with you all. Thank you all so very much for the opportunity. I would love to have you for lunch. And anything else that's needed at all, please let me know. You know, as I said before, just having those conversations happen. Come meet some new friends. You never know. You never ever know who you might be having lunch with or dinner with. Bring a bottle of whiskey with you. It's always long.
We have one more question for you though, Joe. What can we as a community do for you?
Me as a community, I would say please continue to encourage small business. There's so many franchises, so many corporations that are moving in. Lubbock's growing so rapidly right now. I am committed to being able to lift up the small businesses around me and those that have their families that they are trying to support. Please do the same for me. Come in and see me. Recommend us. Learn us more. Don't feel like you have to recommend something that you don't know. Please learn us more. That's really where our hearts are. So that's really all I can ask is continue to have the conversations, work each other out.
Awesome, thank you, Joe. That wraps up today's session. We follow us on Facebook, Twitter. We did a live streaming today, so check it out if you want to look at some of the notes, share that with your friends. We have, I think, 3 more presenters lined up for the books, so we need some more people after that. So if you know anyone, let them know. We would love to have them here. And we're also looking for more organizers. So if you're interested in helping run this event, we could use the help. So have a good Wednesday.